It all starts in the city of Seoul in the middle of a metropolitan area, in one of those Korean rooms that looks more like a shoebox, man. Those cubicles where the folks from Parasite Family live. On the PC, there's an FPS going very PUBG, right? Wicked. And in the middle of the room is lying the victim of the lethal disease called laziness. Damn, I take back what I said, man. It's 7:05 in the morning and the badass's alarm is going off. This one is ready for the big world. Or actually not so much, because he already wakes up and the first thing he thinks about is going back to gaming. He gets up kind of tired while thinking it would be really nice if he could just not go to school anymore. He leaves the room scratching his belly like a lazy little chubby kid and sees a message on the wall. His mom had gone to work, so he was supposed to eat and go to school. This one is our protagonist, and check out the little art style, folks. I like a story with this kind of art. A bit later after eating, there he is leaving the house. Just below the shoebox cubicle he lived in, there was a giant building called Palace 104. He's sure that whoever lives in a place like that probably has no idea what the life he lives is like, but it's not like that was going to change anything. Oh, this is cool. In this story, the chapters have names, and the first one is, "You smell like a homeless guy." Already at the boys' school, you guys know what happens to him every day, right, man? He goes back first to the ground. All with his spine broken, neck out of place, his friend says that apparently they're actually going easy on him. But the one next to him says it's better to be careful. If he had hit his head instead of his back, the kid could have died. But the one in the big white jacket crouches down and says he doesn't even care. It's not like anyone would care anyway. The guy looks and asks if Minjun doesn't agree. That one is Park Seonbin, 18 years old, folks. He tells the boy that he's not going to let him get away so easily this time. Just then, the voice says that, as always, those hallways are way too noisy. Ah, folks, here's our K-pop waifu of the moment, my friends. The new queen of the black skirt tells Songbin to stop acting like a child and beating up the loser. Her name is Henina, and she tells the damn Songbin to stop acting like a disgusting loser. Him hitting the kids like that in the hallway was just ruining the school's vibe. The all-bent-up guy lifts up the protagonist and says he would never hit Minjun. They're great friends and we're just playing. She tells him to stop making stuff up, but Songbin says the one who actually hates Henina the most is Minjun. The poor guy is there, man, all crooked, fixing his glasses, sweating cold while thinking that Songbin and Henina are people he's known for a long time. Since elementary school, they've kind of been with him. Then Yenna says Songbin must be crazy and that she'll never trust anything he says again. Last time she listened to what he said, she ended up in that basement where Minjun lives, which was scary as hell. Apparently, you've got a backstory, some kind of mess happened. And our protagonist says she lives in one of those luxury apartments that he can see from far away from his house. Her relatives own a hospital and are extremely rich. Obviously, she's been spoiled since forever. Whether on TikTok, on Instagram, the girl has countless followers. Among the popular ones, she's the popular one. When she's studying, the artist draws her a little chubbier to make her look smarter. I don't know what that's about. But in daily life and on social media, she's a dangier man. Our boy already knows she's preparing to study in the United States next year. She was the type of person considered perfect. He couldn't find a single bad trait in her. Or actually, there was one. She humiliated the poor. Oh, my little protagonist, your biggest life problem is exactly what she hates the most. Life's rough. Look at that look of disgust she gives when he's looking at the girl. We go back a long time, back in 8th grade when he had the courage to speak just once, man. All crook. He came over like, "Excuse me, are you going the same way as me?" But man, the girl turned around and asked if he hadn't taken a shower because he was kind of stinky. It would be better if he went a different way. Look at the poor guy's bulging eyes, man. In their very first conversation and in her first sentence, he already found out. The girl he had a crush on despised him. He couldn't even understand what this thing about smelling like a poor person was. Man, what the hell is this? Koreans take financial competition to level 10, man. And the poor guy still accepts the humiliation thinking that she's always smelling nice. Could it be that that's the smell of the rich? Actually, I think it's just right because she's a hot girl and her pheromones are firing up his little nose. In the classroom, they had to sit side by side. And obviously, all the time he had to hear her saying he was a perfumed boy, but not really. Even studying with her for a long time, she always humiliated him. Strangely, because of that, he kind of didn't even know exactly how he felt about her. Even now in the present, with her looking amazing, he wonders, does he really like this girl? Or is it just his loser syndrome speaking louder? It'd be ironic to develop feelings for the person who humiliated him. For real, that would be the worst. Since always he's been destroyed physically by Songbin and emotionally by Henina. That's why every day he has that look on his face, defeated, humiliated, ashamed of his own life and his own face. Sometime later in the school courtyard, the protagonist's friends, you can already tell they sustain a good portion of McDonald's stock. Unfortunately, folks, that right there was us back in school, man. They're talking about anime, manga, and games. Damn curse. I see myself there, look, sitting down. I'm that loser right there on the bench. But even though they're talking about a bunch of stuff, our protagonist likes the poor guy who just got wrecked again, is sitting there devastated, not saying a word. On the left, we got the guy who gets with the most girls in the whole school with his grandma glasses. Name of the legend? Boss Sunho. On the right, the landing pad head called Obayonjin. These two are friends with our boy, and obviously they only really talk to each other because they kinda have similar interests. But those two bastards got lucky. They ended up in a class where nobody messes with them. In a way, compared to our boy, they were pretty lucky. For real, he was the only one cursed, with a miserable life in every sense. The friends were calling out to him while he was just there suffering by himself, when suddenly he gets startled as they shout at him. They show him a picture of a very healthy dancer, wanting to know if he's going to Luma's concert. From up close, these damn pop girls look like dolls, and the nerdy friend is dying to go to her show, waving his arms and shouting her name, saying she's a goddess. But our dear Minjin just declines, saying he appreciates the invite. From that day on, he's not into any idol anymore. Obayonjin, though, says he can't just give up like that, man. He has to keep being a fan of at least one of the top 5 idols. But our boy just says he's heading out. The guys change their expressions, saying, "What?" The guy's acting weird. Just a few days ago, he was shouting Lumina's name, all happy. So what happened? Bayonjin just says, who knows, right? He's been kind of lonely lately. Maybe it was because of that rumor that was going around a while ago. Sunho says a guy as loser looking as that, just getting affected by a rumor, is ridiculous. But the big guy responds that they'd react the same way if it happened to them. Back in class 2 to 3, our boy sits down in his chair as lonely as always. From the first second of class, what he wants the most is for everything to just end, right there and then. He hears Sungbin and some guys talking in the background about a guy who was staring them down in the hallway, and he was already wanting to beat him up. Apparently, the guy who stared at him ran away from North Korea, and he wants to know how the hell that bastard is even here in South Korea. That's when one of them looks to the side, man. Apparently, that guy is the real deal, and judging by his face, his hand in his pocket, I'd be running. Right away, he asks who they're talking about. That must be the king of beatdowns. The guy's name? Kang Hakiel. The guy's name is literally a hack, like a cheat code. Better get out of there. But Shanbin right away says yeah, he's talking about that loser and asks if he's got a problem with it. He already grabs him by the collar, but Hakiel says to lower his voice. Shanbin says his mom is an honest worker and tries to lift the guy by the collar. But man, Kang Hakiel is just standing there staring and nothing happens. His friends come over to talk to Shanbin. Hold up, dumbass, you're about to get wrecked. The guy has Hack in his name and he came from North Korea. You've lost your mind. But Shanbin is dying to get beat up. He leans in close and says the bastard came all the way from the north just to die in Seoul, so he better stay quiet. The guy walks off, and the one sweating the most from the whole situation was our boy, sitting there quietly in his corner. As always, the class was trash, the school was trash, life was trash. On the way back home, he once again tells himself that tomorrow he's not going back to that place, no way. Not going to that place anymore was the fastest shortcut to happiness. Suddenly, someone next to him calls out, "Ah man, Sangbin again? Damn, is he a clone, that bastard? He's everywhere." The jerk even says the kid showed up at the perfect time, just when he was about to go get some cigarettes. He tells our protagonist to ask the old lady up ahead to buy them for him. But then Minjin, my friends, is starting to lose his patience, and in his head, he's not going back to school anyway. In that case, he should at least curse this bastard out once. But nope, this isn't the moment our boy starts evolving yet. He only imagined yelling at him and just walked away. Even so, Salman asked why he was being ignored. The guys in the back started laughing at the fool, saying even the loser was ignoring him now. Sometime later, in an abandoned factory, our boy was testing the temperature of the floor, while the guys are wondering why he's being so brave today. Man, Salman's holding a brick. Bro, is he trying to kill the kid? Let me remind you, he's the protagonist. If you kill him, the story ends. Leave him alive, please. And the guy still says that ever since elementary school, he's been letting him live too easy a life. Apparently, not even Sangmin's friends care if our boy dies. Man, y'all are going straight to jail. And Minjin's there on the ground saying they can kill him. He doesn't care since he doesn't even want to live anymore. But he felt bad for Sangmin. I didn't really get why he said that, but the guy gave him a solid kick to the stomach. The guy even says he better not even think about writing his name in a letter if he tries to Alt plus F4. Whoa. He says if Min Gayon does that, he'll have to deal with his mom instead. Man. Sometime later, our poor guy is still lying there wrecked. Back in the alleys of the favela, he climbs the same stairs as always, while telling himself that if the world ended tomorrow, it would be wonderful. He looks back, and seeing those rich people buildings, he tells himself that living feels kind of pointless. If he tried flying without a parachute, maybe everything would end. Man, he's actually arriving at the rich people's building for real. But someone calls out to the boy, and just by the way they speak, I already know who it is. It's her, our savage K-popper, folks. She wants to know what he's doing there. She's sure he doesn't live there. So what's he doing in front of these apartments? He better not say he's thinking about invading someone's house. Look at the boy's face, all devastated, looking at the girl. He came just to log off the server while she thinks he came to steal. And she's just there annoying him, asking if he's making the delivery or if maybe he's really thinking of taking something from there. The poor guy just clenches his fists, thinking to himself that he knows very well he doesn't live in a place like that. The only reason he came there was because he wanted everything to end right there. Then she gets close. Damn it, why does she have to be so mean and so hot? And she asks, what happened to the loser's face? Who beat you up? Man, our boy's got his cheeks clenched. And he's just standing there, quiet, not saying a word. So she says he's really frustrating. If he's getting beat up that much by Songbin, why doesn't he just fight the guy already? After getting beaten up once, at least that wouldn't happen again as long as he started fighting back from then on. Seeing someone like him in front of her made even her feel pathetic. Really, he wasn't good at anything. So the least he could have was the courage to fight. If not, he was going to live that miserable life forever. Man, this girl won't stop. She's like a roasting machine. What's this? Turn it off, it's on 220 voltage. Look at that. Our boy left now. He was already done. He even lost the will to end it all. Just like that. And she's there, arms crossed, wanting to know if he's really going to leave. She picks up her phone and tells him to start answering her, that she's talking to him. But he just walks away. And that beautiful brat just stays there thinking how pitiful the boy's situation is. Extremely cowardly and weak. For sure, she's going to say something to that damn Songbin to stop bothering him tomorrow. She's all cold and distant, but there's a little space in that heart of hers. Sometime later, back in the city alleys, there's our boy entering his shoebox. First thing he's gonna do, man. Obviously. Let's turn on the little PC to play a game. The boy's face is all messed up. Go clean up those wounds, man, or they're gonna get infected and your head's gonna explode. Putting on his headset, he wonders if he gave up logging off the server just because of Yina. At least the things she said, he knows they're true. But whatever. Tomorrow he's not going back to school. From now on, he's never going to see those two's faces again. But maybe starting tomorrow is a great day to start working and help his mom at home. At that moment, the friends on Discord are already telling him to hurry up and get in. They've got tons of matches to play. Time passes and it gets dark. Our guy already shut the window and apparently he spent the whole day gaming. There he is shooting, holding his M4A1, killing zombies in the game. One of the guys in the call then says he has to step out real quick and will be right back. Minjin thinks it's weird and tells him, stay here, at least finish the match. But the guy replies that he has to leave urgently. He's playing with his school friends and Bayanjin, the chubby one, says he's gotta go. That's when Minjin looks over and sees that it's 10 at night, man, his day's already over. But the guys in the call tell them to check the news. Things were total chaos in the world. Suddenly, someone bangs loudly on his door, which startles him. He takes off his headset, kind of confused, not understanding what's going on. Slowly, he gets up, walks down the hallway, and reaches the door, wanting to know who this crazy person is. The doorknob seemed like it was moving, and he's just standing there not getting what this person wants. He goes to the peephole to see what it is, and yeah, there really was a guy standing there, moving side to side. That one's one of the neighbors from upstairs, and the person with the shaky voice is saying for him to open the door. Minjin wonders if maybe a delivery was sent to the wrong floor again. But man, if you look at the guy's back, you can see he left a red trail behind. Minjin thinks the guy's drunk and is trying to mess with him. But he knows this dude's gonna stay banging on the door all night unless he opens. He's always annoying like that, so Minjin decides to just open up and deal with it. As soon as the door opens, he steps slightly to the side, hesitating to ask what's up. But his expression changes in an instant. The guy in front of him was completely soaked in blood. Right away, Minjin freaks out and asks if he's okay, if he wants him to call an ambulance. But man, the dude opens his mouth wide and lunges at him for a bite. Minjin manages to put his forearm under the guy's throat and asks why he's acting like a lunatic all of a sudden. But the guy doesn't stop and he yells at the bastard to answer him. Then he gives him a brutal kick to the chest and sends him flying outside, man. He already has his hand on the doorknob and slams the door shut. The guy starts banging on the door again, but Minjin braces himself with his back against it, man, his legs shaking like crazy. He's breathing hard, not understanding what the hell that was. That dude's face looked completely different. Obviously, as a smart citizen, the first thing he tries to do is call the police, but man, the apocalypse had just barely started and the phone already isn't working. Actually, it seems like it started a while ago because he's been getting emergency alerts since 9 in the morning. It's just that he spent the whole day gaming, right? Got beat up at school and ended up not seeing anything. He hears some sounds coming from that little floor window. Only in Korea, man, this stuff is wild capitalist engineering at its finest. A window at the top of the wall that opens to street level. Incredible. It rains 5 milliliters, your whole house is flooded. A genius designed that one for sure. And the first thing he sees outside is a bunch of people being devoured while others are running and screaming for help. Minjin obviously has no idea what's going on. And the old guy who was banging on his door is now out there chasing after other people too. He immediately shuts the window and starts wondering if his mom is okay. This was exactly the time she should be getting home. He starts calling, but the call isn't going through. Sometime later, night has finally fallen. He turned off the lights and hid in the back of the room under the bedsheet. With his phone in hand, he was trying to look for news, but unfortunately, not even the internet was working anymore. He decides to turn on the TV and keep the volume low so no one hears. On the news, they say a series of brutal deaths were happening all across the city. The number of victims was uncountable, and the government was treating it as an act of terrorism. Investigations were starting to figure out the cause and who's responsible, but no info had been released yet. Minjin's confused. Did this really seem like terrorism? He couldn't imagine that guy upstairs was some terrorist. And obviously, like in every good apocalypse, the government tells you to lock yourself inside and avoid any outside contact until everything is resolved. But suddenly, breaking news is announced. On the streets of Busan, one of the busiest cities, attacks had started breaking out. Violent incidents like this were being reported everywhere, all over Korea. The police and military forces were starting to act, but it looked pretty hard to control. Our protagonist, who's addicted to zombie games, is already starting to recognize that this looked like a familiar scenario. What he couldn't believe was that the whole country had fallen apart like this overnight. The why and what's causing this, that's what he needed to know. He gets up, saying there's no time to just sit there like that. At least that guy that was bugging him seemed like he had already left, so maybe it's clear outside now. The first thing he has to do is take control of the apartment. That means locking the front door was the most important thing. Looking through the peephole, there was no one there. He opens the door, a little hesitant, and sees that the footprints were kind of just leading down, so maybe the guy just walked off. Then he goes to the main entrance, slides the bolt, and takes a peek. Right in front of the apartment, there's already a zombie. He quietly shuts the door and the zombie looks around. But not seeing anything, the thing eventually walks off. With everything locked up, finally in theory, no one else should be able to get in. Now the important thing was to make sure there wasn't already anyone else inside this place. It was late at night, and maybe it was better to just wait for sunrise. The police or someone would eventually come rescue them. What he really wanted to know was where his mom was. The news continues to roll until right in the middle of a report, the TV suddenly loses signal. That's it, Minjin, my dude. Now there's nothing else you can find out. He's scared to even look through the sewer window, afraid of being spotted, so he just falls onto the bed. The problem is, obviously, nobody can sleep in a situation like this. The most important thing was that he was feeling something strange. Yesterday, back at that apartment building, he wanted to Alt plus F4 because life was hell. He wished the world would end, because that would make everything better. And now, it actually seemed like it was happening. But now, he was desperately trying to survive. Maybe, in a way, it wasn't even that different from what his life used to be. Before, he had to survive that hell, and now he had to survive this one. Morning came, and out in front of his house, there were countless wrecked cars and zombies walking all over the place. Little by little, he starts opening the main door to the complex. A bunch of bodies and a few zombies wandering with no direction. The air was filled with the bitter smell of blood, and just from the atmosphere you could tell, nothing there was safe. Trying to leave this place now would basically be suicide. With his back to the door, he wonders what he should do. That's when he decides to start worrying about supplies. In his room, he had 4 ramyeon and 6 cup noodles. Adding up everything he had stored, it totaled about 2 weeks of survival. The sink water and the gas were still working, which was really good. If he rationed everything, and those utilities didn't cut off, he could survive without leaving for a whole month. There's no way that after a whole month, no one would show up there to rescue them. The only thing he really wanted to know was whether his mom was okay, and where she was. He couldn't call the police, couldn't call an ambulance, couldn't reach anyone. Another problem was that in this apartment complex, there were 5 homes with people still inside. Besides that old guy who had already turned into a zombie and was outside, there were still others. He knows there's an elderly couple, he wonders if they're still there. And then he remembers that there's a guy from high school who lives up on the top floor. Every Tuesday when he was heading to school, he'd see that guy bring his girlfriend over. Since yesterday was Tuesday in theory, she must have stayed the night. So he decides to check the top floor to see how things are. He couldn't live in a place where he didn't even know if there were zombies or not. He goes door to door to listen for any sound inside each apartment. Obviously, he wants to know if there are people, but he also doesn't want to draw attention to himself. There was no sound in No1, and now only the top floor guy was left. Looking up at that final flight of stairs, he just hopes that guy isn't like the uncle that turned into a zombie. Honestly, I'm just thinking this guy's a total idiot, right? Climbing those stairs without even holding a weapon. Man, grab something, please. He's there, all freaked out that the door's open, but like, what if there is a zombie in there? What are you gonna do? You'll for sure just end up running like an idiot again. And when he gets up top, he sees the guy's door is also open. He decides to go in to check if everything's all right. And the first thing he sees is a bunch of furniture all messed up. He only notices that there's no one around. But just then, something catches his attention. In the left corner of the room, there's blood on the floor. He wasn't seeing it yet, man, but in the bathroom, the girl had already been devoured, and the guy was standing right next to her. And the protagonist says it was on the second day of the apocalypse that his life changed completely. Even though Minjin couldn't see anyone, he felt a presence. With his legs already shaking, he starts stepping backwards. The plan was simple. Get out of there as calmly as possible, not make a sound, and not draw anyone's attention. But like any good mentally challenged protagonist, he goes and elbows a plant pot, which falls on the ground and of course, makes a loud-ass crash. He hears a noise from inside and bolts because now there's no other option. But man, he manages to trip over his own foot. That's his biggest enemy, himself. Now I like that Henina even more. Someone has to roast a guy like this, seriously, all crooked and clumsy. And obviously, in that act of stupidity, the guy who had turned into a zombie had enough time to get close. The name of the third chapter is Why Are You Here? And right at that moment, the guy is face to face with him. He had just gotten up in front of the balcony. Man, our protagonist went from 0 to 100. He manages to dodge by ducking his shoulders down, and when the thing tries to bite his back, he stands up, grabs the legs, and throws it down the stairs, man. Go check if the floor is cold. But obviously, right, that was kind of by accident. And he's just lying there on the floor in disbelief that the guy really threw himself off the building. Desperate and completely out of breath, he comes running, grabs the door handle, runs down the stairs, gets back to his apartment, and throws himself on the floor. He's there now on all fours in the room, all crooked, with trembling hands, wondering if that guy from the upper floor isn't dead. That would mean that he, in that moment, had killed someone. But he pulls himself together quickly. He tells himself no, he didn't kill anyone. This wasn't his fault. That guy attacked first, he just defended himself. Yeah, folks, this here is that kind of human protagonist you know. If you think he's suddenly going to turn into some Junwoo, awakening an SS rank system with daily missions and doing 3 push-ups to get skull, that's not happening. He's just there, man, having accidentally killed a zombie, already devastated in his room in disbelief that he might be a murderer. He spent that entire day tormented by the guilt of having taken someone's life. Even if it wasn't intentional, at the end of the day, it was his actions that caused that guy to fall off the roof. Then he gets up in the middle of the night, heads out to the stairwell, and decides to go down to the street. The guy he had attacked up there, man, was still standing. And the bastard turns around, dude with his neck and legs more twisted than pasta after 10 minutes in boiling water. Minjun's just frozen, staring in disbelief. How was that guy still alive? The all-Bennett zombie started slowly approaching. And that's when it finally clicked. This guy wasn't human anymore. Look at his expression. He's already narrowing his eyes. You're getting feisty now, huh? He apologizes to the guy, but unfortunately, he was just a zombie. That was the day when his fear of these creatures began to fade. The next day, 3 days since the apocalypse started. After a little instant ramen meal, he already knew sooner or later the power and gas were going to be cut. The question was, when? And that's why he's making sure to eat the things that require electricity to prepare first. The problem is, was it really the right move to just stay there waiting for someone to save him? Maybe it'd be worse to try doing something only once there was nothing left. Besides, since no one had shown up besides the rooftop guy, maybe there weren't any other infected so nearby. At the very least, he should go upstairs and light a fire to signal for help or something. Staring at the barricade he made, he was sure. Tomorrow, he'd have to go out. Maybe it was because just a few days ago he had been ready to give up on life, or because of what he experienced up there that day. But for some reason, he wasn't afraid of the zombies anymore. That's when suddenly his phone signal comes back for a second and gets a call from his mom. As soon as he answers, she asks where he is and if he's okay. He says he's fine, hiding out in their home, and wants to know where she is. She replies that she was taken by some soldiers who were evacuating the city on the very day it all began. They didn't even let her come back home, and back then the phone wasn't working. At that moment, she's in a shelter in the city of Songnam. He right now doesn't need to worry about her, and if he's at home, he is not under any circumstance to leave. She was going to make sure that eventually the military would come rescue him from there. She's saying something about the city of Seoul, about the neighborhood, when suddenly, the call drops. His cursed signal never stays up, but it was fine. He was already feeling much calmer, now that he knew his mother was safe. Since the signal had come back for a few seconds, he got a flood of messages. His friends were talking in the chat about the madness the world had become, about the alerts, the apocalypse, the police, the zombies, and everything else. And the crazy Byeonjin man, the chubby one, is already saying that an alert is basically a raid signal and their mission has started. Our MC can't believe this idiot is cracking jokes in a situation like this. That's when it hits Minjun. Those two friends of his live really close by, so they can help each other. But he only has his mom, and since she's far away, in the end, he doesn't really have anyone. That's when he remembers the only person he knows who lives nearby, not too far. Her, the queen of K-pop with the little red lips. Out of everyone he knows at that moment, she's the one who lives the closest. That's when he remembers she even came to his house once a while ago. Now we get to see the flashback of that whole mess from the beginning. The pile of beer, ramen, and that shrimp snack that's so good. The guys are talking about Henina, and it seems like she liked one of them and asked to be introduced to him. But he asks if she, by any chance, doesn't know he already has a girlfriend. If she doesn't know, perfect. It's just kind of weird because he thinks there's no way she'd come to a place like this. She's kind of spoiled. And Sungbin, right man? Of course he brought every gangster in the city. The guy with the tattooed arms sitting in the corner says she won't care too much about this place anyway. She's never gonna find out that this is Minjin's house, so she'll end up coming. That guy in the bottom left corner says if she shows up here, it's cause she's looking for a boyfriend. The tattooed one, whom now I realize probably is Songbin or else his identical twin, says if she comes, it'll be the perfect chance. Right then, he pulls out his phone and says she just got in touch. Looks like she really arrived. She was out there waiting. It was just a matter of going to pick her up. Our boy Minjin looks all shaken that she really came, man. He's known her for a long time and knows just how much she likes to humiliate poor guys. The damn girl shows up beautiful as ever, but look at the face of disgust she's already carrying. There's barely space for one Minjin in that room, but there's like 7 dudes desperate for a woman and the only girl on Earth just arrived. But hey, it's her, right, man? She stops at the door and says this place is kind of peculiar. The guys start telling her to come in and get comfortable, but right away, she says she's leaving. That day, what made Minjin feel the most miserable wasn't even that Songbin brought a bunch of druggies into his room. Yena said that this place was disgusting, with that cigarette smell and the sticky floor. They should have told her it was Minjin's house, because if she'd known, she wouldn't have come. Look at the face he made hearing that, man. The boy's reaction wasn't great. Now he's there like a fool, sitting on the high ground toilet. Why do Koreans build stuff like this? Who knows, man? And the poor guy's such a sucker. He's still sitting there wondering if she's safe. Since her dad is the director of a hospital, maybe he knows something about the cause of the zombie virus, right? Since, he kind of works with that stuff. What he doesn't get is why he's even worried about this damn girl in a situation like this. She must be living super safe after all. Her life is probably locked up safe and sound on the top floor of that building. That's when someone from outside shouts the name Jung Minjin. From his incredible high ground, he looks at the door, kind of confused. He's sure someone just called his name, or is he going crazy? The person's banging on the door, asking if he's there and yelling at him to open up. And while our fool's there with his eyes wide open, yeah, he definitely recognizes the voice. The most savage one of all. Yena herself crouched down, knocking on the floor window of his room. But obviously, that kind of knocking wasn't gonna go unnoticed. She looks to the side, and the zombies were coming. At least one of them was limping, so it'd take a bit to get there. She keeps banging on the window, telling him to open up. The poor girl is desperate, crying for help. And still gorgeous. Damn her. Even after all the humiliation, our protagonist still rates her a 10 out of 10. And right in that moment, Minjin opens the door and tells her to get in quick. Of course she runs in, he closes it, locks the bolt, and the zombie horde is left outside. The poor girl had come all the way from her building in a rush, and now she's collapsed on the floor, sweating. Her feet are all red. He can tell she really went through it to get there. He asks if she's okay and why she came. Then suddenly, she grabs his shirt and throws herself into his arms to cry. Man, what a sad moment. I'm actually moved by this scene. She's there, clinging tight to our boy, who's asking what happened. Chapter 4. Henina and the basement. After a moment of silence, he asks again if she's okay. That's when she finally lets go of his shirt. And damn it. Yo, artist, why'd you throw a bucket of water on her like that? Not to mention he used like 78 different skin tones just to, let's say, accentuate the curves. And looking absolutely stunning. She thanks Minjin for opening the door. If it weren't for him, she definitely would have died. He's all red now, right, man? All awkward. He just says that it's good to hear that, thank you. He's just glad she's safe now. She then looks to the side. Seeing everything he's barricaded, she asks if he's alone. He replies that yeah, his mom left for work 3 days ago and never came back. But luckily, he managed to talk to her and found out she's okay. Looks like she ran into some soldiers and was evacuated to a safe place. She says at least that's some good news. Our boy then wants to know how her parents are doing. She replies that her dad seems to be stuck at the hospital, but is safe. When she goes to talk about her mom, she hesitates for a second, but then says yes, she's fine too. Right then, she asks if he has some water because it's been a long time since she had anything to drink properly. She was surprised that his house still had electricity. Some time passes, she's gotten good and hydrated. And the artist man, as always, cooked, right? Ah, you sly dog. From the angles, we're starting to understand a bit about the pencil master's preferences. Minjin's startled at how much water she's drinking. Not to mention, hey, they need to ration it. If a supply gets cut, he's screwed. But he decides not to say much right now. She just ran for her life, so it's fine. Then he asks if she came all the way from her house to here. Or actually, he wants to know why she came from her place to his. She then says she's been hiding this whole time, ever since the day she saw him standing in front of her building. When she got home, some stuff happened and she decided to leave. She was walking through the city streets when suddenly she heard a scream. When she looked ahead, a bunch of people were running toward her, panicked. She didn't even know what they were running from, but she obeyed and ran too. Sometime later, she was hiding in the stairwell of some apartment complex. She kept waiting for a chance to get out of there or for someone to save her, but no one came, and so she just stayed. He asks if she stayed in a stairwell for 3 days. She then says that at the bottom of the stairs there was this tiny little room, kind of like an office, and that's where she stayed. At least there was a small water bottle, and that's how she survived. But on the third day, she was already at her limit, starving and dehydrated. That's when she decided she had to leave. Since it was less than a kilometer from her place, she thought the best option was to run and try to make it. Maybe she'd run into a police officer or something that could save her. But as soon as she turned the corner, there was a bunch more zombies. And of course, that was exactly the street she needed to take. So she kept going, trying to get closer to her house, but kind of avoiding zombies. That's when she remembered. This was Minjun's neighborhood. The problem was, once again, the way to her house was blocked. That's when she started trying to remember exactly where his house was. And she remembered, right then. She was sure that he went home 3 days ago. If he hadn't gone out and died like an idiot, he'd still be inside. Man, she was brave, crouching down, sneaking past zombies. Minjun says he's impressed that she had the courage and skill to get all the way there. Yeah, way better than you, right? You saw a zombie and tripped over yourself and almost died. She's there, eyes closed, looking gorgeous, saying at least she's relieved he really was at home. Then she says her hair is all gross and she's all sweaty. If there's still water in the house, she'd like to take a shower. Man, our boy's a peculiar one. He's straight up staring at her armpits. He even roasts her a little, saying her armpits are really soaked. If she wanted, he could lend her some of his clothes. The poor girl's turning a little red, right? Not exactly the kind of comment you make. And the punishment she gives him, one a lot of people would probably want. The poor guy gets stomped out. She says he really is an idiot, and it's no wonder he deserves to get hit. Then she just walks off, saying if there's water here, she's going to take a shower. All he can say is, okay, what else can he say? And that's when it starts to hit him. Suddenly, his whole situation changed. Now the question is, what's he going to do? Before she showed up, the plan was to go out and scavenge for supplies. But now you feel kind of bad about leaving her behind. Problem is, there's only enough food in that house for 1 month. With 2 people, that obviously gets cut in half. It really was a desperate situation. But at the same time, he can't stop thinking. The legendary Henina is showering in my house while the world is ending. He remembers back at school, man, when he'd run into her, and she'd always make a face and wouldn't even look him in the eye. Now there she is, suddenly opening the door, asking him to lend her some clothes because she's been wearing the same ones for days. All awkward, he asks if she wants pajamas or if she wants shorts. She just tells him to give her anything. When he hands them over, she sniffs them, and our boy's all red. She says, obviously this stuff stinks like hell, and asks if he doesn't have anything else. He says he's got more, sure, but they all smell like that. She puts the clothes on and says the smell of those rags is almost unbearable. But fine, she wear it until her stuff dries. Minjun, all crooked and nervous, says he washed them recently. To which she replies that must be what happens to clothes when you live in a place like this. Then she leaves, saying there's not much to do anyway. Our protagonist is just sitting there in disbelief, asking himself if she really has some kind of personality issue. It didn't make any sense. In a situation like this, and she's worried about smell, time passes, night falls. Her clothes are still laid out to dry and they've eaten some ramyeon. She then asks what they're going to do. It looks like no rescue is coming. She says that before she got there, her plan was to go somewhere else. But now she says that's insanity. They still have food, so why take the risk? She nearly died several times just to get there. So if he's thinking of going outside, she's not going. Kind of awkward, he says he understands. He's not saying they have to go, he's just saying that was the plan before she showed up. Now that she's there, they can stay together and wait for rescue. But the bipolar lunatic suddenly asks, so what are we going to do when we run out of food? The poor guy's sitting there like, damn, what do you even want from life? Then he says the only way they might last longer would be breaking into the nearby homes and looking for resources. But there's no way to know whether the houses or apartments might have infected people inside. On top of that, the screaming in the area is getting quieter, which means fewer and fewer people are alive. When they run out of food, there's no choice. They'll have to go out. But then he gets up and says, no way, we can't just stay in here. He says he understands it's dangerous, but they can't just stay put forever either. They're going to run out of food. That's inevitable. She says they'll think about it when it happens. He still hadn't stepped outside and had no idea how terrifying it really was out there. Those people who looked like zombies were extremely scary, and she almost died just to get here. Minjun, with his usual wide-eyed look, says that if she managed to make it all the way there, then maybe they could get out too, avoiding attention the same way she did. Besides, she knows very well that those people are exactly like the zombies from movies. From what he's seen through the window, you only get infected if you're bitten. But then again, it's not like they cared much about being infected anyway. None of it mattered. He didn't have anything to lose. But she's not having it, man. She tells him to wake up. She wants to survive, so it'd be great if he didn't go turning into a zombie. She still has to go study in the United States next year. He hits her with the obvious. Well then, don't get bitten, right? Not to mention, what he's been noticing is that depending on the condition of the zombie, they end up walking slower. Obviously, the ones with broken legs can't run, so they're easy to avoid. Not to mention their running speed is slower than a normal human running, which means they can be dodged entirely. He asks if she ever played tag as a kid, and says it's basically the same thing. If you see it that way, it's way less scary. She just makes a face and says he's lost his mind, calling this the same as playing tag. The Pencil King strikes again. She lies down and says she's going to try to sleep a bit, asks if he's got some blankets. He says yeah and sets up the perfect bed, one mattress next to the other. The absolute legend. But obviously she wasn't having it right, man. She asks if he's crazy, thinking he's going to sleep glued up against her like that. She immediately points to the other room and tells him to sleep there. All awkward, he tells her to remember, this is his house. There's no way he's sleeping in front of the bathroom door. She changes her expression and says, all right, I get it. I'm the uninvited guest who must have gone crazy for a second. She says she'll sleep over there and he can keep the comfy bed. He's calling out to her, but she tells him not to worry. She'll stay next to the bloody staircase while he's there on the fluffy mattress. He tells her that's insane and that inside the house is way safer. But she just tells him to stop worrying about the home invader. She's leaving now. Our boy gives in, right folks? He says fine, tells her to stop making a fuss. There he is now, sleeping in front of the kitchen. To be honest, it's not even that bad. But obviously, it'd be way better right next to her. He closes his eyes, saying that either way, he'll sleep easy. He's exhausted. At least he's still inside his house. And thanks to her, he's not so alone anymore. But seriously, that damn girl doesn't shut up. Night falls, and outside you can hear some zombies growling. Time goes by, and Yina can't sleep. The zombies keep making noise, until she calls Minjun's name. He turns over and asks, what is it? That's when she asks if maybe he wants to sleep in the room. Of course the guy accepts, right? But if you think he's gonna be spooning with her, nah. He's there in the corner like some loser who got punished in school and has to sit away from everyone. Chapter 5, Don't Leave Me Alone. Lying there in the middle of the blankets, she says that zombie noise is just weird. She heard that sound hundreds of times while hiding in the stairwell. But even so, it was something she never got used to, and it's still terrifying. And she says she misses her mom. The poor guy's just there in the corner, right? Not saying much. Then the sun rises. They had checked the houses and every floor of the buildings. Everything was full of zombies and blood. And our dear Yina, right folks, wakes up absolutely beautiful, of course. Staring down at her from above, there's Minjun, wondering how long this damn girl is gonna sleep. For someone who said she was dying of fear, she looked pretty chill. It was already 9 in the morning when the little princess finally woke up, living her stress-free life. When she looked back, our boy was already putting on his jacket. She wanted to know where he was going. He says he's thinking about going upstairs again to take a look. She immediately gets up, saying that's insane. He could end up infected and maybe there's a bunch of zombies up there. He ignores her and just asks if she's coming or not. Cause obviously, she answers no. And with that, he closes the door and starts climbing the stairs. As always, without a weapon in hand because he's got 16 IQ points, a true apocalypse genius. One thing that did freak him out though was that the front door's glass was starting to crack. Even though it was covered with a film, there was still some risk. But he couldn't do much about it and kept going up. That's when someone behind him says the smell is awful. Obviously, it's Yina saying she got a bad feeling about what they're doing. He's standing there kind of confused, but hey, since she's coming along, he keeps going. At the top of the apartment was the body of the guy's girlfriend who had died. Man, the situation up there is just incomprehensible. And Minjun finds it weird that she's not moving, didn't turn into a zombie. Humble boy didn't get scared. Instead, he even said a prayer for her. As they were leaving the apartment, she asked if there was anyone there. He said there was, but the person had already died, and it was better she didn't see the scene. Yena didn't really know how to respond, but just went along with it. Now both of them are thinking about lighting a fire. The problem is you can't keep the fire going all the time. And if they wait to light it until they see a helicopter, maybe the smoke won't go up fast enough. She decides to start yelling, calling out to the neighbors to see if anyone's on the upper floors. But he tells her to lower her voice, saying she's only going to draw more and more zombies their way. The glass at the entrance was already cracking, so that definitely wasn't a good idea. With not much of a choice, the two of them kept on surviving alone in that place. Some time later, she randomly asks what his MBTI is. From what I looked up, that's a personality test. He says he never took it. She says he's the first person she's ever met who hasn't taken it. Probably doesn't even have Instagram. And if he does, he must have less than 50 followers. He says yeah, without really caring much. She then wants to know what his hobbies are, what he does with his life. When he says he's a gamer, she wants to know what kind of games. He says he's been playing this zombie killing game lately called Rage ZZ. She laughs and says that's hilarious. Like he was playing a zombie game and the world ended exactly like that. She then says she's sure that if he took the test, he'd be an introvert for sure. Someone who doesn't go out, always eats alone at school, and likes those types of games. No way he's extroverted. She asks if he's spontaneous or reactive, and our boy is just sitting there thinking this damn girl talks way too much. They could die any moment if the zombies break in. And there she is, wanting to talk about this nonsense. She's there asking about the MBTI again while he's half answering, saying he doesn't know much about it. But really, he's just thinking that before all of this started, she wouldn't even look him in the eye. And now he's the only person she has to talk to. And man, the queen of the stomp strikes again. While he's thinking, this is crazy, he's alone with the girl he's always kind of had a crush on. Maybe that was a good thing. And the cursed girl won't stop hitting him. How can someone be this cruel? She's there pounding on his chest, telling him to answer. While he can only wonder if any of this really even matters anyway. At any moment they could die, and if one of them ended up on the ground tomorrow, it wouldn't be a surprise. That's when she kicks him, telling him to stop ignoring her. He apologizes, saying he was just lost in thought. Time goes by, and the two of them are like us, folks, reading a little manhwa. A few days had already passed, and yeah, the apocalypse was starving everyone. But somehow, some people just don't lose weight. The girl's still looking perfectly well-nourished. And with those little red lips, she asks if the poor guy's already finished doing the laundry. There he is, man, fuming, already tempted to leave this damn girl behind and run off. Why? Out of nowhere, in the middle of an apocalypse, did he become this cursed girl's house slave? She should be the one washing her own clothes. But poor Minjin can't express himself properly, and there's not much he can say to go against her. Electricity had finally gone out, so no machines were working anymore. At least the water was still running. But the food, yeah, it was getting to a concerning level. Already with his backpack on, he tells Henina that he's heading out. I thought she blocked the boy, but nah. She just says, okay, but be back in 30 minutes max. If he's not back in half an hour, she says she's going to kill him herself. He says, all right then. Outside, the glass was still holding. He steps out hesitantly and closes the door. Over the past few days, he's been patrolling the paths he knows are safe, and he's been using the opportunity to observe and study the infected. They really do act exactly like zombies attacking living people, but they don't attack the dead or the already infected. Their vision seems to be generally poor. At about 50 to 100 meters, they can't really see you. On the other hand, they're extremely sensitive to sound, so you've got to keep noise to a minimum. During the day, for some weird reason, the number of zombies is 3 times lower. It's like the others run for the shadows or just somehow don't like daylight. That's why he always avoids going out at night. He crouches and watches a few of them while thinking about their traits. One thing that really catches his attention. These zombies are exactly like the ones in that game. He wonders if that has anything to do with this. Either way, all this was just the beginning. With the world like this, it was only a matter of time before everything would end. Back in the apartment a while later, Yena had already finished reading all the manhwa and now was starting to get bored. The problem? Dan Minjun was taking forever. The past few days, he's been disobeying her too much. So she's going to have to make sure he gets a little lesson. She looks up because, once again, she hears the sound of a helicopter. But unfortunately, that didn't matter. We see that when the helicopter flew over the building, they managed to light a fire and send up a lot of smoke, but were completely ignored. Night kept approaching, time passing. And there she was, biting her nails in worry, wondering why that damn Minjun wasn't back yet. She starts pacing in circles, saying it's already been over an hour since he left. Something must have happened. Maybe he'd even been infected. At the very least, she's sure that the moment he steps back in the door, she's going to beat that boy up. He must be spoiled and only listens when he gets hit. Next time he tries to go out, she's going to break his legs to make sure it doesn't happen again. But man, the sun's already going down. Her energy for complaining is running out as she's there devastated, already starting to cry and begging that he's not dead. The sun was setting, and she remembers that he warned her. That's when more and more zombies would show up. She's curled up in a corner, begging him to come back as soon as possible, telling herself, please, don't let me be alone. And then suddenly, she hears a sound and looks to the side. It was our boy coming in, telling her to take a look. But then his expression suddenly changes. And there she goes looking all pouty because our boy took way too long. She says the bastard's been late for hours and asks if he's got a death wish. She's already winding up to punch him, saying he needs his head straightened out. But then he hands her a flyer, stating the helicopters that had been flying overhead were dropping these. He saw it falling from far away and well, it took him a while to get to the place and pick it up. Now her expression completely changes. She's in shock for a second and asks what the hell this is. Chapter 6, Time to Leave. The banner said that the Nº1 region would go into quarantine, and that all survivors should evacuate before 6 p.m. on the 10th. The problem, man, is that's tomorrow. How are they supposed to get out of this whole place that fast? He tells her to look on the back of the flyer where it lists the danger levels for each region. Their current area is marked as cautious, but Yanjong, which is nearby, is listed as safe. The only issue? The surrounding areas are all marked as extremely dangerous, which means this place is also going to get worse very soon. Standing still here waiting for help is the worst possible choice. Poor girl doesn't even know how they're supposed to escape this place all of a sudden. And also, what even is this quarantine thing? What are they going to do? Minjun is just thinking that even though their region is marked as low risk, there are still infected everywhere. He doesn't even want to imagine what those high-risk zones must be like. But he has no choice but to believe the flyer. If the northern areas are completely overrun, maybe heading south is their best shot. The only option, it seems, is to cross the Jihan River. and since the two main crossing points are listed as extremely dangerous, they'll have to take the eastern route. Along the way, they'll pass through that Sake city, and he wants to understand why it's labeled that way. Maybe there are military forces or survivors managing to hold things down there. She's impressed, saying she thought he was a complete loser, but he's a little bit smarter than she expected. He just ignores the comment and says they're heading out first thing in the morning. She, on the other hand, is freaking out, shouting that they should stay just a little longer. She's sure someone's going to come save them. But Minjin calls out to her, "If you want to die alone miserably in the basement, go ahead. Tomorrow morning I'm leaving the moment the sun rises." Damn, the poor girl got roasted. She puts a hand over her face and says she gets it. At the very least, they should gather whatever food is left and pack their bags. The sun rose the next day and the two were ready to leave. As they were walking out the door, Minjin turned and asked if she was sure she didn't want to check the hospital where her dad worked. If he was okay and working there, they could stop by. But she changes her expression and then says it's fine. It's better if they go right away. Her dad had already said he got her mom to a safe place, so she's sure they're okay. But of course, Minjin found those answers a bit odd. Already outside, the two were sneaking through alleyways. Our gentleman was walking ahead, giving her a thumbs up when it was safe to follow. Even though there were a lot of zombies around, they just had to move in total silence and stay unseen. In the middle of the city, buses were stopped everywhere, with blood smeared across their sides. Walking along the sidewalk, though, they were both surprised. This was way easier than they expected. Even Yina comments that maybe things weren't even that bad when she ran away the first time. Maybe she was just super tense. He explains that this is only happening because they're walking right where the sunlight is strongest. And the cursed girl is just like Donkey from Shrek, asking every 5 seconds if they're there yet. He keeps replying, "Nope, no, still no." And then she asks him to wait a bit. Her legs are hurting, and she wants to rest for 5 minutes. But our boy, man, just keeps walking. Says, "Yeah, sure, take 5 minutes, and while you're at it, make a little coffee." She curses at him, calls him a bastard, and says that when they finally get somewhere safe again, he's going to pay for all of this. Some more time passes, and there she is again, wanting to know how long until they get to Yanjiang. He says, "We're almost there." And she snaps back, saying he's already said that several times. As he kept walking, listening to her complaints, he gradually became more alert, more sensitive to danger. Until finally, after a few more minutes of walking, they come face to face with a barricade. Now it made sense why this region was safer than the others. She suddenly looked excited, saying that at least, yeah, here there probably aren't that many zombies. Maybe there were even some survivors. He starts climbing over to the other side, telling her to hurry up. She looks around and says this place already seems better. Doesn't look like there are many infected. She's telling him to look and asking if they can rest there for a bit. But he just tells her to come on already, saying they're sure on time. She starts complaining about her foot, but he tells her to stop exaggerating and climb up already. There she is, hand on her hip, looking furious. 2 minutes later, they're both on the other side, face to face. And out of nowhere, she starts crying. She was finally feeling a bit safer. Minjin stands there, not really getting what's going on. Then she apologizes. His expression changes, but not because of the apology. It's because right behind her, a horde of zombies was coming. When he tells her to look, they both see the creatures. He immediately grabs her arm and starts running. They move through the side street while she's asking why there are zombies here if this was supposed to be the safe neighborhood. That's when, right in the middle of the escape, Avad pulls a piece of furniture aside in front of them and calls out, telling them to get in quick. As soon as both of them pass through, Minjin goes to help the guy push the furniture back in place, and the man tells her to keep running. They count to 3, but right as they're about to push the furniture into place, a zombie arrives and blocks it. Minjin calls out to the man, telling him to watch out. But the furniture falls right on top of the zombie. The guy takes off running, yelling for everyone to get out of there. Minjin turns to Yina and yells for her to run, and the two of them keep going through the alley. Up ahead, there's a pile of furniture blocking the street. It's at least 2 or 3 meters high. He says that unfortunately they're going to have to jump over it. But when they land on the other side, she twists her ankle. Minjin can't believe this is happening right now. And the problem is, right then, he hears something. To the left, some zombies are closing in. Now there's no way to run. Her ankle's messed up, and he remembers what she said. How frustrating it was to see the way he always acted. If someone like Songbin was beating on him, he should have at least fought back once, because if not, he'd never have the courage to defend himself. Seeing how he always ran away made her feel pathetic. And now, our boy finally pulls out a weapon, man, and the queen of K-pop is sitting there, in disbelief, asking what the hell he thinks he's doing. And standing face to face with the zombies, he says, "I'm gonna like on this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out."